Hi guys, welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, thanks for joining me. If you've been on here before, thanks for coming back. This tutorial is just a little add-on to the tutorial that I put on previously about replacing the mechanical oil seal, and I had a few comments and questions about some of the details that I didn't really include them in the main video. If you haven't already and you'd like to see more content, please remember to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and I always appreciate your comments and feedback. Let's get into it. What we're going to encounter these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts. I usually number them with a marker pen so that I'm able to put them in the same order. So we're going to undo those. There we go. So that is what you're going to see. And this is the first tricky, but this impeller is going to be potentially, especially if your bike's a few years old, is going to be quite difficult to remove. Lock up the back wheel of the bike, either by pushing on the back brake, or you can put a piece of timber through your back wheel just to help lock it up, because if that's really tight, it's actually going to try and turn the motor over. So we're going to undo this bolt like this, and what you're going to find is that this impeller is potentially going to be seized on there. It's going to be rusted on. Okay, it doesn't unscrew, it doesn't come off, but it doesn't have a thread, it's just on there. If you look closely at this, shaft tends to corrode. So what you're going to need to do is very carefully use something like a piece of hardwood as like a wedge, a really thin, narrow wedge, something like that, like a hard plastic doorstop, and just get it in there. Now it's going to be really snug, so it's going to be quite tricky. But just very gently, I would get a wedge in there and just tap, 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 and that will come off. Try not to be like me and damage this impeller. So it's a little bit bent, where I put a screwdriver under there and tried to kind of prise it off. It was really badly rusted on, and I've also used some water pump pliers to try and kind of pull it off. It caused a little bit of damage there. So be really careful. These aren't super expensive to replace, but it's just time and money that you don't want to have to spend. The next thing you're going to do is remove this plate, and again, it's going to be on there pretty firmly. You've got some little tabs to kind of pull on. There's one there and there's one here, and you're just going to tap it and wiggle and tap until that plate comes off. Once that plate's off, this is the actual seal, the mechanical water pump seal. That's what we're going to replace. The other things we're going to be looking at replacing are these gaskets, or these rubber seals. That one separates the water from the oils. There's also an O-ring on here, and then there's another seal that needs to be replaced that's on the inside of this cover. You want to remember to smear a bit of grease on there just to help that seal settle in place, and that's going to help. Other thing to remember is you've got these pins here, and make sure that you don't lose them. One stays behind in the motor, and you have two in the water pump cover. This is the drain bolt. You undo that one first. You'll see that in the video. That's the one that you undo to drain your coolant. Remember, the torque spec on that drain bolt is lower. Don't overdo it. Let's strip it. So what you're going to find is that on this shaft you've got a lot of corrosion. You're going to want to remove that corrosion before you put the new seal back on, because this buildup of corrosion is going to damage this little bit here. Be really careful, and I do explain it in the other video, to clean this corrosion off the shaft. Line that up, and we're going to slide that back on. Get it on nice and firm. Then the impeller goes back on. I like to put a little bit of anti-seize on that bolt. Hand tighten. Make sure it's all lined up properly. And we're going to lock up that back wheel again. Tighten that to spec. Alright, so what I've done is I've found two pieces of timber which are going to secure the plate. Get them as close as possible to where the seal comes out. We've got our socket mounted in the other side. You've seen that from the other side, and then what we're going to do is we're going to crank that vice grip nice and slowly. Keep an eye on that plate, make sure it's not bending. I'm going to press out that seal. Pull that out, and there you have that seal. So when you buy your bits and pieces, that's one of the things you're going to get. So as you can see, obviously pressing that out like that has distorted that a little bit. The seal removed. And what I would do now if I needed to. I'd give that a bit of I'd clean that out. This doesn't look too bad. In the past I've had it's looked pretty bad. So I just give that a wipe, get it nice and clean, and get ready to press the new seal back in. Now obviously I don't have a new seal because I don't need one yet, and this is how we would put the seal back in. So this is where our socket, you need a 26 or a 27mm socket, something that's just the right size to sit over that. I'm going to put a piece of timber behind it, and be careful not to damage anything. Now this socket, probably I wouldn't mind if I was doing this with a real one. I would definitely be investing in a slightly smaller socket. I think a 26mm. Obviously it depends on the design. And we've got that piece of timber behind there. I'm going to use that socket. Obviously if you want, you could buy the proper tool, and we're going to press the seal back into place. Using the socket, give it a good nudge. Piece of timber behind it. Obviously we don't want to damage this plate. Make sure that that's flush. Give it another little tweak, and there you have it. To answer your question, those of you who are asking, obviously this one's a little bit out of shape because it's an old one and I've butchered a bit. We push the old seal back in, and that's what you want, nice and flush over here, and you're good to go.